host, Andrew Romanella.
When you play Battle in Mario Kart and you don't turn off any of the items, there are bananas everywhere. I mean, it's like you're losing your balloons because you're slipping on bananas left and right. Bananas everywhere. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of The Rome Show, Hump Day edition of The Rome Show here on 12ouncesports.com, broadcasting live on, hold on, I got the intro. Yeah, it is. On YouTube, X, Roku TV, Amazon Fire Stick, and of course, 12ouncesports.com. I'm your host, Andrew Romanella. It is February 12th, 2025, and we have a really good show for you today, including a special edition Wednesday show where the one and the only Hockey with Rocky joins us the entire time. Rocky!
Now,
inside the glass. Hockey with Rocky.
What's going on, everyone? This is Connor Hellebuck, and I'm backstopping Team USA at the Four Nations tournament this week. How we doing?
I was happy you didn't say Jordan Binghamton because he's backstopping the Canadian team for the Four Nations Cup.
Listen, I started with a goaltender because I think it is going to be the difference maker in this tournament.
I 100% agree. So here's what great radio people do, Rocky. They tease the human beings. So
Beautiful.
Obviously, we are here to mainly talk Four Nations Cup. So anyone that doesn't know, the Four Nations Cup is getting started tonight, Canada versus Sweden. And it is a newer version of what the NHL is trying to do during the All-Star break in a non-Olympic year, if I explained that appropriately. So Rocky and I, around 7:15, 7:20, right after our commercial break, want to give you everything we got on the Four Nations Cup. So we have a few hump day headlines to get to, but 7:15, 7:20, the real true reason why Rocky comes on every week to talk about the puck on the ice. We're going to have that for you in terms of the Four Nations Cup. Any teaser to give the people before we go to the football, Rocky?
Saturday night, 8 p.m., USA, Canada. That is the game I'm looking most forward to.
Oh, man, I'm excited because I think Team USA is going to be pretty good as well. All right, let's go into a few let's go into a few hump day headlines, Rocky, because that's going to matter. Oh, look, I found the goal horn.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Day.
You knew it. And our first day headline, Rocky, is Kellen Moore is now the head football coach of the New Orleans Saints. Kellen Moore was last the offensive coordinator for the 3 days ago Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. While the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, Philadelphia was fifth in the league in points per game at 26.4, fifth in the league in yards per game at 376.5. And in terms of QBR, which I think is arguably one of the most important stats just because it's a holistic view of how well your quarterback is playing, fifth in the league in QBR at 62.1 in his 2 years as the OC, i.e. with Jalen Hurts. On top of that, in his second year as OC of the Eagles, first year with Saquon Barkley, he made Saquon Barkley the all-time single-season rushing leader for playoffs and regular season combined. Now, obviously, I know they have a great offensive line, Rocky, but they had to replace a Hall of Famer in Kelsey at the center position. And the offensive coordinator has a lot to do with getting an offense to its full potential. So that's your resume on the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Kellen Moore. Rocky, your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts is, happy for Kellen Moore. And I was thinking about it last night, getting ready. I was like, it's funny. The NFL does such a good job promoting the next talent. I feel like every year you see an OC or a DC come into the forefront as a head coaching position. They do a really good job, actually. I would argue, almost better than any other sport when it comes to new head coaching opportunity for people who are making waves, like in the assistant fashion. However, I have if Kellen Moore has about, I don't know, half a season to make it work, or else he's probably getting canned. And that is like, and that's the thing. It's like, I don't even know how you get excited about this. I mean, the lifespan for a new head coach in the NFL can't be more than 2 years.
That's a great conversation to have, because I feel like, Rock, it's almost less about Kellen Moore and whether or not he'll be a good head coach. It's actually more about, is he going to a scenario where, by nature of talent, by nature of the way the organization's run right now, are the Saints even going to be good enough really in the next 2 to 3 years to compete? And then what's that look like for him as a head coach? You know,
well, it's crazy too. And like you made a stat yesterday when you were talking about the Jetropolitans and how they're the only team in the league over the last 6 years who hasn't made the playoffs. Yet if we looked over the last 6 years, the amount of 1 year or 2 year head coaching firings for new coaches in the league is astronomical. And you're like, well, if every team is finding a way to get to the playoffs in a 6 year span, I mean, you would think that they're actually probably doing better than what we're looking at. And again, I just think it's a lot of like, it's really like a lot of that media that drives the decision making in the professional leagues.
I agree with that. And I think it's also nobody has patience in success culture, right? So it's like, hey, I want success immediately. And in some smaller minority scenarios, success can happen quickly. Look at the Commanders. You went from 3-14 to 10-6 or 11-5, whatever it was, and in the postseason, and winning postseason games in the NFC Championship game. Well, that's awesome. And that was fun to watch. I'm sure it was great to be a Commanders fan. But at the end of the day, that's the 1% of organizational coaching changes. The 99%, Rocky, is that team isn't winning that much in their first year. That team is trying to win in its second and third year. And if it doesn't look any different or only slightly better, that team is most likely going to fire their head coach and possibly fire their GM.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now is really the difference between the role positions and their effect on the teams. Like Kellen Moore, he's not going to be judged for his ability to generate a good offense, right? If we learned anything from the Chicago Bears, if Kellen Moore doesn't know how to manage the in-game and make a good decision on when to kick a field goal, when to go for two, when to go for it on fourth down, that's going to be the detriment of his ability. It has nothing to do with him being an OC. And if we learned anything from New England this year, we learned that, Jared Mayo, you've got a terrible culture, right? So you're judged on your culture and your decision-making in-game. In Washington, I would argue your GM is the hero of that team for drafting Jaden Daniels. And then your OC is probably the hero for putting Jaden Daniels in a position to perform as a rookie. And your head coach is, I'm just making sure that those pieces are sticking together. So I think we're really seeing the distinction in the role type, but no longer can really a head coach be a defensive genius or an offensive genius. If that guy doesn't have a good culture or make good in-game decisions, there's no way he makes it in the NFL.
We're talking with Hockey with Rocky. Our normal Tuesday slot guy comes in on a Wednesday and just starts dropping knowledge about not just the hockey, the NFL. Rocky Romanella here joining us. If you got a question for Rocky, you want to write in, you like to tell us our opinions are good, you want to tell us our opinions are bad, head to youtube.com/12OZ Sports and comment live on the show, or head to X and hit comment and we'll get the comment live on the show. Rocky, you just said something right there before we move on to our next Hump Day headline that I just wanted to touch into real quickly. So you look at some of these jobs that were available this year, okay? You're looking at the Saints, you're looking at the Jaguars, you're looking at the Titans, you're looking at the Bears. What is there a job that you were looking at and you're going, man, if I had a chance to be a head coach, I wouldn't take that job? Because I think based on kind of what we're talking about here, I know these are few and far between. You almost have to say yes, but it's like there are got to be certain jobs, whereas you're almost going in here going, it's almost going to be impossible for us to succeed the way they're running this organization.
I mean, the organization, how it runs is a huge reason to what you're looking at. I mean, you talked about how the Jets are hire, fire. Like, you have to respect the Giants for sticking with Dable and Shane this year just because of that, because they've got to get out of that cycle, right?
And like the Steelers too, right? Long time have done that.
No doubt. And if I look at those three teams, I'm saying who in reality, I'm saying, which quarterback do I believe in the most? Because you made another point about Aaron Rodgers yesterday and how like you need a leader in that clubhouse, and which quarterback on those three teams gives me the best chance to build a winning culture in the locker room? Because if I'm going to overcome a terribly run organization, I better have the players that support it, because that's the only way it's going to work.
It's a great point. And by the way, if you look up on the screen right now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the cap space that's going to be available roughly for each team this coming off season. And if you look at the right side, and I don't want to very often because the Dolphins are on that right side, Rocky, you can see though that column 3 and column 4, those 16 teams are in a bad way going into the offseason. And you see some names that continually show up in that area, and you see some that don't, right? You don't expect, maybe you expect the Bills there, blah, 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 whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, there are teams that are in a bad spot. But man, there are some teams that you take over, like the Bears right now. Maybe if you believe in Caleb Williams, that's a fun place to be. So interesting to look at the cap space openings.
I would have chosen the Bears out of those three, like over Nashville and over Jacksonville, just for pure market presence, history. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if Caleb Williams is a problem. I mean, is the story about the OC not wanting to do film with him true? Like, I'd be wanting to be like, yeah, I got to go work with that. I've got a bigger sample size in Trevor Lawrence, and I don't necessarily, love what I saw there. Like, Chicago is definitely appealing. Honestly, the Raiders job probably the most appealing. In reality,
I agree 100%.
I mean, New England looks good. New England's set to rebuild their entire place and go back and figure out that. And they should have hired they should have hired him, Mike Vrabel, last year. That was
I agree.
So it's interesting. It's definitely interesting to see the NFL, and I would argue that some of the coordinators might need to start making more than a head coach, because like, how many coordinators have just thrown away like 2 to 3 years of their ability to be looked at like in a positive light because they took a head coaching position?
Yeah, it's a great point. And like Robert Saleh is a great example. He was an unreal, everyone wants him defensive coordinator, gets hired by the Jets. And now, yeah, maybe he makes some bad head coaching decisions. Maybe he probably isn't that great of a head coach in this moment, but maybe the organization he's at has now tainted whether or not you think that guy's going to be a good head coach long term.
And look at how many guys have come back from being a poor head coach and now are showcasing what their true talent is, which is at the coordinator position.
That is a great point. So, and time will always tell. And sometimes you turn into Sean McVay and everyone thinks you're a genius. And sometimes you turn into what we just mentioned, Robert Saleh, and everyone thinks you shouldn't be a head coach in the league. But either way, we will see. But I think the Saints got at least who they believe is their guy. Give me one more headline before we move on to our commercial break.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Day.
All right, here we go. For the third straight year, the Super Bowl averaged over 100 million viewers. Okay, Rocky? It peaked at 137.7 million viewers. Okay, that's up. And the average was 127.7 million last year. On top of that, Rocky, the Nevada Sportsbook won a record 22.1 million winnings on the Super Bowl. But how about the state of New Jersey? The state of New Jersey took home $25.2 million. But the stat's not over, okay? Because it was the most viewed, all right? It was the most won in terms of money. But how about this? It was the least bet Super Bowl in the last 3 years. So the public spent the least amount of money betting the Super Bowl, $151.6 million, and lost the most amount of money all time, and it was the most viewed. So clearly the little bit of people that were watching it, and Rocky, the only thing I could say is it's probably because it was such a hard Super Bowl to determine. It looks different when there's a blowout after the fact, but before the fact, there's not many people that really knew what was going to happen.
Absolutely no idea what was going to happen. It could have easily flip-flopped the blowout from a blowout standpoint, and it could have easily been a dogfight, possession by possession, low scoring, probably less than 50 points or less than 60 points, I would say probably. down to a last field goal. I mean, that's probably, I mean, that's more of what I expected. You know, that's the way the Chiefs played all year. And I would argue that was what was going to dictate the game. But to see really the defense of the Eagles absolutely show up in a big way early on. I mean, that was the biggest surprise is stymieing the Chiefs offense early.
I saw something great today. It was like the Chiefs spent 2 weeks trying to stop Saquon Barkley and thought about nothing else. And that's exactly what happened.
and that is why having multiple weapons, you have all three phases. Your wide receivers can beat you, your running game can beat you, your quarterback can beat you, and that is all powered by the offensive line, which everyone talks about. No one knows, but like, man, could you imagine if your team, whatever team you're a fan of, replace your O-line with the Eagles O-line and tell me you don't win 2 to 3 more games? I
couldn't agree more. I think that, and the D-line, by the way, Rocky.
Yeah. Listen, the trenches, the game's won in the trenches.
And I'm over the quarterback draft thing. I've said this for multiple years on this show, and you have come in and out of being a weekly host and a daily host on this show in 6 years, okay? How many times have I said, if I'm a GM, I'm drafting offensive and defensive line first. I don't care about the quarterback because you could figure it out if you have great line.
If I have the money today and I need a quarterback, why wouldn't I go get Kirk Cousins, draft a line, and find a quarterback that I can nurture under that tutelage for 2 to 3 years?
Right.
Why 100%. Wouldn't I go do that?
I couldn't agree more. We might need to get you back on here tomorrow so we could talk about the quarterbacks that some of these teams need to get, because I'm so curious about it. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, all right? Because I really want to get Rocky's opinion on the Four Nations. I'm sorry, Rocky. I just got a comment I'm going to throw up on the air from Kyle, the goalie Swifties cashing out. That's hilarious. Like, you know, it's like it's something interesting because like, more people viewed it, and a lot of people think that that's because the way streaming is existed and the numbers are like, you know, different, I guess. And a lot of people think it's because President Trump was there and Taylor Swift was there. I don't really know. I personally just think it's a reason for people to party and hang out and drink. That's just my opinion.
Absolutely, but it is so. I guess the streaming platform that it aired on for free is like the most up and coming free
Tubi.
Yeah, Tubi is like. And everyone believes like that Tubi platform is like a gold mine, and like Fox has actually turned down like $2 billion offers to sell it because of how valuable it is. So I think that got a lot of play, but like you can watch live on Twitter, you can watch live everywhere. So
it's awesome. You know, it's like one thing where the streaming services are tough, and it's another where it's like, hey, you know what? It might be giving people a chance to watch these games that didn't have a chance, dude. Kai the goalie's going off, and we really appreciate Kai the goalie right now. Drake been real quiet too. Listen, Kai, we're gonna leave that for the hip hop radio shows, but I understand what you are alluding to. The Rome Show with the Romanellas here on a hump day, Wednesday. We got Rocky, and we got Andrew here. We're back after this commercial break to talk Four Nations Cup and so much more. The Rome Show, 12 Ounce Sports.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Yeah. It's the Rome Show, 12ouncesports.com. Andrew Romanella, Rocky Romanella, having a blast here on a Wednesday. It's hump day. We love hump day. We talked a little bit of football to start, but now it's time to talk Four Nations Cup. All right. The NHL taking a break for 2 weeks so they could have the Four Nations Cup. The Four Nations Cup is a face-off between, I think people are going to believe the four best nations that really cover the most of the NHL. It's Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the United States. So that is the deal. All right. Rocky, initial thoughts on the Four Nations Cup starting tonight, Canada versus Sweden.
I can't wait for it. I'm really excited. It's going to be a great precursor to the Winter Olympics in Italy next year. And I think that there's more the international geopolitical landscape is why you're not seeing Russia, which is probably who should be there comparative to Finland. And when you look at like total number of players in the NHL, but that's more of like a politics and like a international thing, which is why Russia's not there, in case some people are wondering. But you are looking at absolutely stacked rosters. You have Brad Marchand, Nathan McKinnon, and Mitch Marner, who are equally making, these are $8 to $9, $10 million a year guys, which in the NHL is like your A plus players. That is like, no one's making more than like 12 a year. Like if you're making 8 to 12 a year, you are a first liner in this league and you are a star. Yeah, that's right now written down as Canada's third line. And if this depth chart, I don't think this depth chart is right, but it's got like McDavid on the fourth line, which is not the case. But you've got some of the best players coming together here. I think that Canada and the United States, in comparison, are at two really, really unique parts in hockey history, as the U.S. has the most representation we've ever seen in the NHL with U.S.-born players. The youth World Junior team just won back-to-back junior championships. And so for USA hockey, on the precipice of like almost a run of dominance. And if you're going to compare the international game to anything from a USA standpoint, basketball, absolutely dominant. Right? Like swimming, dominant. Gymnastics, dominant. Always in the mix. Hockey, always in the mix. But like when it comes to like a true domination, they've never really held that crown. And it looks like we're at the point where like if it's not this class of USA players, it is going to be the next class of USA players that really dominates the international landscape. So I'm excited to see what that looks like.
Now, do you think that moving forward long term, this is going to be something that the NHL wants to have replaced the All-Star game? Or is it going to be like we're going to go in and out of the Four Nations Cup, an All-Star game one year and an Olympics another year?
No, it sounds like what it's going to do is help drive like the World Cup of hockey that happens like in the summer a lot more. But I don't think that they're going to get away from the All-Star game. Like it's interesting because last year they completely revolutionized the All-Star game. They completely changed not the game itself, but the skills competition. They completely revamped it, and that was a player-led revamp, right? NHLPA was all in, and I thought it was fantastic. So just a year later, they don't even have it. I think this is more about driving viewership to the Olympics in the future years, and really, helping the game grow internationally. I don't think we'll see this mid-season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? Because that's tough to put on mid-season every year or, guarantee anything. I think that's what's hurt with the World Baseball Classic is you tried to make it like the replacement of the Olympics, and it's not that at all.
No, absolutely not. Really excited to see what it holds. So just so everyone knows, it's a 3-game round robin. So you play each country once, and then the top 2 teams are the teams that play in the championship. There is no third place game.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. If you win, 3 points, lose 1 point. Win 3 points, win in overtime or a shootout 2 points. So It's going to be an interesting play. It's like Matthew Tkachuk said, it's going to be like 4 game 7 or 4 game 7s in a row if you play all 4 games.
And I have the schedule up right here. Okay. And it looks like it's ending next Thursday, Rocky. That's going to be the championship game. And it looks like essentially ESPN is covering most of this, minus a few on TNT. You think that's good for the viewership? You think that helps when it's ESPN? I think they might be the best for hockey.
No, I don't think it helps. If you look at all of the reporting this year, hockey viewership is down, and it's down across the board. And I can't help but think it's because of ESPN's involvement. Now, I think that they do a good job. I like their guys for the most part. I think Seth MacFarlane is just a joke. I think what's that guy's name? I can't stand him. Stay with college football, buddy. Like, he sucks.
There are just some you're not going to get hockey the way you.
I can't stand that guy. He's such a terrible commentator. Does zero play-by-play. All he does is talk BS. Like, give me Kenny Albert every day. Anyways,
true.
When ESPN's viewership started spiking, and as we've dawned into this modern era of hockey, that was on the heels of Versus and the NBC Sports Network, where you could exclusively find nationally broadcast hockey only in one place. That was NBC. Since the TNT to ESPN thing, finding the game has been a lot harder. ESPN does present the streaming option, so I get a lot more out-of-network games, but like, you black out every in-network game, and so if you fall privy to any of the disputes between all of these cable companies and all of like the networks, right? You could be in market and not be able to see your own game. Yeah. So it's tough to find. It's actually diluted the product from a TV standpoint, in my opinion, which is why the viewership is down across the board in the NHL right now.
I have had the most fun watching hockey this year than I have had any other year, but I think that's less about the viewership or how to find it, because I think I do have most of the places I can find hockey. I think it's about the talent. And I think what you're going to see in this Four Nations Cup is a more condensed version of the talent that's spread out across the 32 teams in the league. The fact of the matter is there are good players playing in Canada, but on West Coast time. There are good players playing in the West Coast in general, or even on East Coast teams that you might not watch that are maybe not in your area or playing as often. So what I like about this Four Nations thing, you look at the rosters, Rocky, you're going to see the talent in the NHL all over the place in one location. And in some cases, 15 of the top 30 players maybe in one game. And I think that is a unique thing to be able to watch. So I'm the most excited about that. Before we let you go here today, give us your prediction. You think it's USA? You think it's Canada, Sweden, Finland? Who you think can come out on top of this thing?
I think it's USA, Sweden in the final. And I'm all in on Team USA. I think Canada is super high flying. I just think they're going to stumble for whatever reason. Like, people aren't. I don't know. There's a lot of question marks around Canada. Now they might go 4-0 and sweep the thing, but because they have like the most combined talent. But I think Sweden is your sleeper. I think Finland's good. I just don't know if they have the firepower and the depth. Team USA has the best goaltender, and I agree. That's the X factor for me. And I think that the decision on who starts your game one is going to be a big factor. I mean, UC Zaros might not even play for Finland. And I would argue coming into the year, out of the 3 guys I'm looking at, Kevin Laakkonen from the Canucks and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen from the Sabres, UC Zaros is the best goaltender there, but he probably isn't starting. So like, it's going to be interesting to see how the goaltender factors in.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, in order to win any type of hockey championship, you need somebody in between the pipes that is going to play on top of their head. Rocky, this has been a blast. Your final thoughts on your full Rome show today?
My final thoughts are actually not going to be hockey. I am blaming Eli Manning's lack of Hall of Fame induction on the New York media and on no one else. If you put Eli's career in Miami, if you put Eli's career in DC, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Chicago, Detroit, Minnesota, Houston, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, the list goes on. That man would be a folk hero in those cities. propped up like the greatest thing that has ever come through. But if Eli's Manning career was in Cleveland, it would be the most incredible career that we've ever seen in the history of the world. That dude gets a bad rap because the New York media didn't like the way he looked and the way he carried himself. And that is the only reason he's not inducted today.
Couldn't agree more. And yesterday I talked about it. I'm sure that's why you got fired up about it. But I never thought about the what city he played in argument comparative to how people look at his career. That's a great point.
If he brought the Miami Dolphins to Super Bowls,
he'd be Dan Marino, second coming. With
I mean, come on.
Oh, it's a great point. Rocky, this has been a blast. We appreciate you joining the show today. We might have to do a full show next Tuesday.
I'm in. I'll do it.
Rocky Romanella, everybody. Really quickly, hold on. Let me get you the sounder. We'll put some music on, and we will do the fun stuff, which is Daily Bananas.
Ba 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 na na.
All right, here we go. I'm going to choose the Four Nations Cup each night that they play, Rocky, because I feel like it's the right thing to do. So today, because there were no lines on it yesterday, and also I didn't look deep enough into it because I don't know how deep these lines are going to go with how much talent is on the ice. So I'm going to straight up take Canada over Sweden tonight. I just feel like it's one of those things. It's in Canada, so be it. They're the away team, but they're in their homeland. I think it's going to come out with a Canada victory. Secondly, and finally, the Knicks played last night against the Pacers, and they played good basketball, but now they're in a back-to-back against a team that they've never really played well against in the Hawks. They won by 13 last night, which gives me belief that they could bounce back. So instead of taking the Hawks on the money line, I'm going to take the Hawks at the +7.5 because I still think the Knicks could squeak it out because they're playing good enough basketball. But it is the second day out of a back-to-back. They were away yesterday, and they are home today. So give me Canada, money line, Sweden, Hawks, +7.5, Knicks. Those are your daily bananas. And ladies and gentlemen, that is what we call the Rome Show here on a Wednesday. Thank you very much to Rocky for joining us for the entire show. We had a blast. Thank you to the fans. Kai, the goalie, thanks for writing in. Goalies are the reason Eli is elite. I saw that last comment. We love you for it. Tune in tomorrow, 7 a.m. The Rome Show, 12 Ounce Sports. Have an electric day. Peace.
Thank you.